a real effort to put together a number one best-selling book, and it has taken some time. Today's topic is all about AI, all about Startup Club and how we're using AI, but how hopefully how others are using AI as well. And it's again, we call it AI open mic. We often like to do open mic sessions because the community on Clubhouse is absolutely amazing. Like what everyone can come up with, the people who are here, the people who contribute, they really have some great advice and some great stories. So we really appreciate stories and learnings, and we're trying to learn from each other. We're about 960,000 members, maybe 970,000 on Clubhouse, on the club called Startup Club. I think we have like 6 or 7,000 Mimi over on Entree. We've got a few thousand on LinkedIn. I know I've got about 10,000 or so. So we're starting to get close to that million member mark, which is I think a pretty notable amount for a club. And believe it or not, we don't charge anything. It's absolutely free. There's never been a charge to join Startup Club. We've never charged a thing. Everything has been free to this date, and we're going to try to keep it that way as much as possible. I would suggest though, if you like to listen to startups and you like to learn from startups and other founders, to join startup.club, go to the website and sign up to the email list. Uh, we know that email list is probably the most critical way that you can interact with the club, and it really is amazing because we actually send out an email only once a week, and we talk about who is coming on the show, and we have a lot of great speakers lined up. But you wouldn't know that if you were not on that mailing list. So I really encourage you to go to www.startup.club. And Mimi, thank you for posting that above, and you can see that in the screen. If you're listening to this on YouTube, and today we got some numbers on YouTube, we're starting to get a bit of a following on YouTube, which is pretty cool. But if you're listening to this on YouTube or you're listening to this on podcast, this is actually a live show. It's a live community. And today we're talking about AI success stories and how startups have used AI to help run their business. And this is going to be interesting. And we're going to talk about Startup Club too. We've been doing a lot of work. We hired two experts in AI. They're taking a master's of AI management at the Schulich School of MBA, which is York University in Toronto. And we've hired two of those individuals, and we're working on some very cool plans to help startups by using AI. And we're going to talk about that later as well. But what is it that you have done with AI to help your startup? So please raise your hand. It's Friday afternoon. We love having people on stage. We love it when you come on stage and share your stories. Michelle, you're now the CEO of paw.com. Very cool. 3 times on Inc. 5000 list. You killed it with the growth there. But how is paw.com implementing AI?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. There's a lot, obviously, that we're to do and have done. But one of the bins that we've done recently is we actually use Zendesk for our customer support. And we turned on chat with a AI, let's just say AI aided virtual assistant on chat. It doesn't answer the questions, but what it does is basically when the question comes in, AI then takes it and says, okay, here are the three possible categories and suggestions for articles that we're looking at. So it takes our content it has, whatever it does, and then suggests links to what an answer might be. And already we had a goal of, funneling 30% to, automation through the chat, and we're already at 31 like 0.5%. So that's one big way that we're using it. Obviously there's still a lot of opportunities there. Like we want to get it where we even have, whatever AI, ChatGPT, whatever it is using, the model that it's using in the background, where it actually kind of rewrites our content for the answer. um, but it takes, like you have to train the model. So that's one big area that we're using it at. It's really important for us because we run it, like a proper call center. We're looking at satisfaction scores, you know time to resolve metrics, all these kind of things. And our metrics, even though we're down one person quit, our metrics are actually climbing across, resolution, answer times, all this, even though we're one person down. So that's very promising for us. And then the other area that we're using it for is, I'll say the marketing team uses it quite a bit to help with, many different things, from content to, calendars. I really, everything that you think of, it can kind of help you on, in my humble opinion. But those are, the top of the, funnel. We're actually getting ready to deploy some product suggestions on the website that also will be using AI. So it's super exciting times for us. These are things that, let's just say in the old days, and I'm old, would have cost massive amounts of money and been, massively complicated, that we're finding are quite easy to plug into. They're not always cheap, but they're definitely, we're making strides, to help the business grow. And that's what it's all about. We're not letting people go, Colin. I know a lot of people are worried about that, but there are strides to help conversion and help us actually grow the business, not scale
Right, it's
back.
actually helping us scale our startup and not just cut expenses. Because that's the thing, is you can reduce expenses or you can keep your people, but often when you try to scale, you have to hire more people. And now we're finding we just don't have to hire as many people and we can scale our startups. Well, last week it freaked me out a little bit. We had a contract issue. Let me just say that. I took the contract, I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I asked it some questions. I said, "Here's the contract." I started asking questions. First of all, break it down. I need to understand what's the legal ramifications if this company doesn't inform us on this particular date to deliver this service. How do we have to? Is there a refund? Do we ever have to pay the refund? What if they don't require? I kept asking it questions over and over again. It got deeper and deeper and deeper. This would have been no less than 4 to 5 hours of legal work at no less than $250 an hour. And I got it within 5 to 10 minutes. It was freaky, actually, weirdly freaky. I just got a contract in during lunch here when I was with you, Michelle. And the contract was about, I'm doing an article for a blog, and they asked me to sign a contract. I think it's called Training Weekly, or it's about hiring staff. And I've been doing articles for Forbes and for other magazines, but um, I have to sign this contract. But instead of reading the contract, I cut and paste it, plopped it into ChatGPT, and had it break it down and say, okay, what am I looking at here? Is there anything unusual? Should I be aware of anything? Okay, yeah, I can't do that. Okay, I can do this. And it sort of broke that down and made it simple for me to read. Like, I used this analogy a few weeks back on a podcast. It's almost like Tony Stark putting on the outfit. You know, on his own, he's a little bit of an idiot, but when he sticks on that outfit, man, can he deliver results. And when you stick on the AI outfit, and hopefully we'll be talking more than just ChatGPT today. Hopefully we'll be talking about Pi AI and Perplexity AI and Claude and all the other AIs. But Again, we're really looking for stories from the community today. It's an open mic Friday. We want to hear about success stories. And please raise your hand, come on stage. This is also a syndicated podcast. It goes out to YouTube and then it goes out to a podcast, but it's also going into our AI engine. Now, this is cool. So, Mimi and I have been working on a project called Startup Club AI, and you can go there right now. It's pretty basic right now, so don't freak out and say, "Oh, it could be so much better." Yes, we're working on it. We're going to try to make it better. Startup Club AI will be the idea is that it will generate answers based on the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. And it's been a number one bestseller in 14 categories. It's a great resource to start. So it'll start by answering through the LLM will use that book as the first thing it looks at, and then it's going to look at. We did about 100 short videos on YouTube, and then we've done about now 145 podcasts. I think we're at 145 on this podcast actually. And we've got all the transcripts from all those podcasts. We've got dozens or hundreds, I guess, of shorts, YouTube shorts that are being launched, so that you can go to Startup Club AI, and you can do that right now. Mimi, if you just want to tag that at the top, so if people want to have a look at it, but you can go to startupclubai.com and ask a question, and it will spit back information based on the book. Now, why is it different than based on just going to ChatGPT or Pi.ai or um, Perplexity.ai? I think it's relevant because it's it's unique information. It's not genericized. Let me say that. I'm not saying there isn't a place for generic information. Okay, we're going to want that. We're going to add to that. But I also think there is a place for um, databases of information that follow a particular stream. And at Startup Club, we've been doing this now for 2 years, and our stream is really all about how do we give back? How do we help out? How do we help startups succeed? And we do it in a way that's not the get rich quick way, okay? You're not going to get rich quick in a weekend. But we do say in the book and in Startup Club is that if you build a foundation, a solid foundation, your chances of getting rich or being successful increase dramatically. But there is work involved, and you've got to learn how to become an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is a trade. It's a trade that you need to master like any other trade. Do you think you could just walk into it and be lucky? There are some who are, but let's also be honest that there's a lot of bad things that can happen. And that's the other thing we share. We share the failures, we share the pain, we share the roller coaster, we share the emotional stress that comes from it all. We share it all. And this AI that we've been developing is really designed to answer questions. So let's say I want to write a very short business plan. How do I do that? Or I want to exit my company, or I want to do or due diligence. How do I handle that? Or it could even be as unique as how do I handle the schedules on a contract to sell my company, which we've talked a lot about. That, believe it or not, it's actually an issue. It's actually a challenging thing to do is handle schedules, and there's some real stories about that in the book, but also in the podcasts. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build this database so that you can simply go to it, ask a question, and it will answer. Mimi, I know you had a chance today to work with the programmers. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts. Roland, by the way, nice to see you down there. Kyle, Shadow, man, you guys are amazing. You keep supporting us. We love it, and you're welcome to come on stage and talk about your AI experiences, your successes. But Mimi, well, how did it go today? It was a little bit. I was a little bit like it was like a lost in the woods. Like they were so talking up way above my level, and they're like
Mine
22
too.
years old.
really smart and really technical, but it was really interesting and so much work and behind the scenes stuff that I didn't know goes into it. It was really interesting to see how the developer is sourcing the information for the back end of the AI and kind of how he's compiling it all to get the best answers. So I'm really excited to see how it evolves and gets even better. But yeah, I think it's a great start.
Yeah, and it's 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 interesting that you can take content and it may be content that's 2 years old. It may be Roland or Shadow was on stage and they talked about something 2 years ago or a year ago, and yet someone can pull that up and it can be relevant. So I think there's an opportunity there to really tap these databases or find ways to learn from them that we haven't experienced before through these LLMs, these learning language modules. I don't know. I think I got the acronym right. I probably got it wrong.
Model.
Learning, was it learning
Large,
language model?
yeah, large language model,
Thank
something
you.
like that.
Large language model. That's correct. Exactly. So we did an article for Forbes on 13 ways that startups can accelerate their growth. Okay. And I'm not going to repeat all 13 ways. You can type in Forbes.com, Colin C. Campbell, and you can see the article that we wrote that was published on Forbes. But I will say there were a few interesting things. One, customer service. You hit that right, Michelle. Two, virtual CMO. We actually had on Startup Club we had a a a marketing executive who came on Startup Club and we asked her to come up with a motto for Startup Club. And she did a pretty good job, like, a community to build. Da, da, da. And I said, okay, can you spit back 5 different mottos for Startup Club on ChatGPT? And she came up with one that I really liked, which is fuel your startup journey. I really thought was pretty cool. So here we are. Like we have these, we have a startup. We're a startup. Startup Club's a startup. And we have the access to these $150,000 CMOs, right on the ChatGPT app. And by the way, I'm not gonna. I mean, hopefully we can start opening our conversation up beyond ChatGPT. Get into Pi.ai. Get into um, all the other AIs out there. Perplexity AI has been one of my favorites recently, and that's because it moves at a lot quicker pace, but grabs information that's relatively new. I've used it to write contracts. We've used it to write blogs. My wife hadn't updated her blog since 2021 on her school. We own a school here in Fort Lauderdale. And I said, why have you not? Within 10 minutes, I produced 10 articles. And she looked them over and she was astounded. They were good. I know we're starting to use that for paw.com, Michelle, as well. I did one on, we have this new shopping product. So I took my dog shopping. And so I put it in there and I talked about Ginger and her experience shopping and how she. It was funny because we walked into Home Sense, Home Goods, Home Sense. I can't remember which one it is, but one's Canadian, one's U.S. But
Home goods.
Home Goods. We walked into Home Goods and she was freaking out. All the carts going by, all this, that, and the other. So I ran home. I got this pup tote. It's like a carrier for dogs, but it's a carrier that works in shopping carts. Paw.com's the first company to ever launch a product like this. So it's interesting. So I did that. I took some nice photos, and so I prompted. I think it was ChatGPT in this case, and I prompted ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to come up with what they thought were the best ways to take your dog shopping. But I added in context that I've got this pup tote and I took the dog and here's it's a Cavapoo and this that and it put together a pretty good article. And I think Michelle, you're going to publish it. I don't know. I don't know you're going to publish it. You're the CEO.
I definitely am. We have a lot of blogs to post, but I love it, especially when we come into stock with that product. It was a great article, just showcasing how you use the product and the actual need.
Absolutely. And number 6 we had on the article was writing a business plan. So actually using it to help you write your business plan. Now, this is interesting because I I wrote another article on Forbes and I specifically said, do not use AI to help write your business plan. Okay? Do not. You cannot outsource the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur needs to challenge convention, challenge ideas. The one thing about AI is it's going to look at the world through a consensus. And sometimes AI won't get you in that direction. It'll provide solutions that the majority might think about. Now, as an entrepreneur, you're an individual. You need to strike out as an individual and come up with different ideas. And with those ideas, create that plan. And actually, in the book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, we have a 4 sticky note business plan. You can do it in 30 minutes. But then, when you're done with your plan, when you've created that ingenuity, when you've defied those rules, when you've broken those conventions, that is when you can go to ChatGPT or you can go to Perplexity and you can have those apps help you write your business plan. In fact, I would encourage it because an investor plan they can produce. They can produce a really, really good investor plan. Number 7 on the article was lead generation. Every business needs sales, and AI has the ability to put together highly targeted sales letters in whichever style you like. Um, I actually did another. It was another show on Startup Club, and I asked it to write a letter as to why people should consider joining Startup Club. And I read out the response, and to my surprise, everybody in the audience was just absolutely awed by this. Here's one that this is number 8. Use AI as a coach. Ooh, you know how much we pay for coaching in our companies? Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But anyway, why don't you consider using AI as a coach? Take your idea. I still think you should vet your idea with people around you, but also vet it with, vet it with your AI, your favorite AI. One of the ones that I've been enjoying is Pi.ai. Pi.ai. It's free. Download it. It's an app. You could, it's really good, and I've really really enjoyed it. And that's one that's more a little bit more conversational. In fact, I think that AIs will begin to niche, just like we saw the niche of magazines or stations, TV stations. So there it is. I've got 6 more on the list that I'll talk about that were published in Forbes. But let's hear from the community. If you've had a success with your AI, please raise your hand. Come join us. We'd love to hear from you.
All
We'd
right, we have Shadow right now on stage. Shadow, thank you for joining us. Let's hear what Shadow has to say because I know you're using AI.
I use it extensively every day. I have multiple specialized prompts that I've written to get myself and my Reflective Echoes project from a single word into a final output of about 1,000 words in a reflection. And in between, I've done an image and a quote that all lines up. But I've kind of taken to using 4 AIs: the Perplexity, Gemini, ChatGPT, and Pi. I start in ChatGPT and then I take parts of it and I dump it into the other parts or into the other AI and get the input from them and then combine it together to get, what I consider to be a fairly full picture. It's actually interesting the differences that can come up between them. Gemini will often challenge me on the quote. ChatGPT will just give me feedback on the quote in the sense of, I think this is wonderful and it fits your image. Where Gemini will say, well, this is good, but you could do better. You could add this. which is kind of cool. It gives me that feedback that I need. I've also found that I can take my quote and I will say to it, identify the main topic and three subtopics, and then give me post suggestions, 5 post suggestions for each one of those, like the three subtopics and the main topic. So within no time, I've got 20 possibilities for posts that I can do in addition to the reflection that I've already written. So I'm just not going to run out of content to do on my projects.
I haven't tried Gemini, so I'm definitely interested, especially with what you had to say. That sounds really interesting the way you approached it. So I'm going to try that
It
myself.
used to be barred,
But oh,
and it's
okay,
just been opened up for the Canadians. I was going in on a
really?
VPN, but now I can go in legitimately.
Okay, very interesting. So you're saying, what is the URL? Gemini
I
or
don't know. I've got it pinned. I don't even look anymore.
yeah, yeah. While you're doing that,
Gemini.google.com.
Yeah,
okay, I'm definitely going to try that one out. That sounds really cool. I like the whole concept of feedback because I hear what you're saying. I use, Perplexity, Copy AI, and Chat GTP, and it's getting to where the answers or, the responses are, quite different, and they definitely are biased in different directions. So I think I'm going to try that Gemini and get that kind of feedback. But I'm curious, Shadows, are you also doing, and maybe you said this, I'm sorry, um, images? Like I see you have a really cool graphic for your avatar here on Clubhouse. Are you also using that? Because I also saw today or yesterday that ChatGTP actually released like a video generator. What are
yeah.
you
It's not
using
out
for
to
images?
it's the video generator is not out to the public yet, but what I've seen of it, it's going to be amazing. And you can do up to a minute long, which is about the longest of any of them so far. Uh, Primarily for my images, I use Midjourney, but I do get my prompts generated inside Chat GPT, Gemini, and Pi. I have a I have a really long, detailed. Well, I have a prompt for analyzing and comparative rating the images that I generate. So what I do is I go into that GPT that I've created first thing, and I'll say, okay, I want to know of an image that is to represent the word Komrabi, because that happens to be what that my avatar is representing. What does it need to have in it? What elements need to be present in order for it to be ranked 10 out of 10? And I'll get this great big long detailed criteria. Then I'll take that and I'll go into another prompt and I'll say, give me 12 prompts for the word Komrabi and include this criteria. And I drop that in there. And it comes back with 12 prompts for me in Chat GPT. And then I go to Gemini and get 10 more using the same criteria. So I get a wide variety of prompts that I can work with in Midjourney by using AI.
It sounds really cool. I love what you're doing, and I've seen what you're doing. It's great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have Mary on the stage. Mary, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I use chat I use chat GP and AI, and I use it every day. I have a consultant business. I work with small business owners, and also I do a lot of nonprofit work. So I use it for grant writing. I use it for grant research. I also, especially, is helpful with Gemini that they are up to date with data numbers. So I use it, especially them. I use for any data or information that's requested on a grant. And what I think a major part of, I tell it when I do grant research that you are a grant researcher. So I let them know who you are. So then, and what I want, and then it delivers it. And also, when I'm writing anything for a grant, I give them a readability score that I want. And also, I may say, I want you to be a freshman in college. It depends on what type of grant is at what reading level that I want to be. So I use it every single day. And I know, Colin, you mentioned you don't like for business plans, but it has worked out really good. Um, Using, I have you kind of perfected for the what prompts I need to write, create business plans, strategic planning. I also use it for helping clients with processes in their business, so it works out really good. And I do use it for social media planning. And I have used the images on. I have Chat GPT 4, so I do use the images I've used on there for some projects and everything. It worked out really good.
Yeah, I don't want to leave you with this idea that I don't like using it for business plans. I love using it. In fact, we actually own the domain businessplanai.com, and we're going to launch a free business plan builder on Startup Club. Uh, and what I did say though is that when you're first putting your business plan together, is to think about doing it without AI, because we don't want to fall into convention or conventional thought. Most businesses are successful because they are disruptive. They're different. We go into white space. That's what Joe Foster calls it in the book that we published. But he goes into white space, and they created something called aerobic shoes. And that aerobic shoe, that move that Joe Foster made, moved their company from 9 million after Jane Fonda wore the shoes to 900 million. They actually became the largest shoe company in the world for a couple of years in the mid 80s. And it can't happen if we're just, because at that time everybody was just a running shoe. And if the AI at that time produced, oh, how should you make a new shoe? It might suggest that, oh, just make a better running shoe. My point about that was you could never outsource the human brain. You can never outsource the entrepreneur, but you can outsource all the other stuff that goes along with it. And when you want that investor plan, absolutely embrace AI. It can do SWOT analysis, it can do competitive analysis, it can do risk factors. It can write a freaking S1. You know we paid 1.8 million dollars, Michelle? 1.8 million to write the S1
I know it's
for a
crazy.
prior company that went public. S1's a document that you need to file with the SEC to go public in the United States. We paid $1.8 million in legal fees to write that document. This is what we're talking about. I mean, by the way, I hope there's no lawyers in the audience, or if you want to, or if you're a lawyer, you want to come up on stage. But a lot of that stuff is very consistent methodology and that. Oh boy, oh boy. What are your thoughts, Mary? Am I going off the line here?
No, I agree with you. That's one of the things, the questionnaire that I give my clients before. So I should say, I ask them questions to get their passion, everything first before I do start generating it by AI. So I do agree with you. I learned your post-it method, so I love that too. So sometimes I just do by hand sessions before I even go there. So I agree with you because sometimes the output, especially Gemini, he likes to get smart sometimes. So, got to be able to relate to that, but also make sure it's personal and given the right prompts for it to do with output what you wanted. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and I like the way you use the word personal. Because let's be quite frank, the level of content in this world is going to explode. There's going to be so much of it. So unless there's that personal element, the personal story, we're going to know it was ChatGPT generated content. And I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to, that, okay, I call it corporate language. I think I see it all the time when you see corporate blogs, and I'm actually with my actual physical hands doing quotations right now. Corporate blogs, and they're so generic and perfect and clean and boring. So, I mean, one of the things I challenged um, the team at paw.com because we actually eliminated our content. We had a company that did all the content for us for the blogs on pod.com. And I'm challenging the team to each person on the team. So we have about 25, 30 employees who work all over the world. And I'm challenging the team who all have dogs. Most of them have dogs. And I'm challenging them to come up with an article or a story about their dog. And then it's okay. Once you got the story, once you've personalized it, Mary, right? We can pop that into ChatGPT. We can use ChatGPT to take that story and turn it into a cleaned up version, hopefully not too corporatey, but cleaned up version that can sound pretty authentic and real. But it is real because you prompted it with personal stories, right?
Yes. I mean, I think just like you said, that's what's so important about it, that you tell them, like I want a grant research. It gives me different outputs if I say, just give me some grants under $10,000 from this state. Where if I say you are a grant research, then it thinks different and it also output. And it's interesting that sometimes the 3.5 gives me better output than the 4 when I ask that question. So it does make a huge difference. I also like where you can customize Chat GPT. I have an SOP one that I use for clients, but I really like that some of those customized Chat GPT that you can do.
Yeah, I can see in the chat here we have Morris who's talking about Claude.ai. And he says it's not bad and less lecturer than Gemini and Copilot. And by the way, Morris, feel free to come on stage and talk a little bit about that. I tried to use Claude. One thing I heard about Claude that was cool was that you could put larger files into Claude. And I tried to use it to create a workbook for Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. See, we've had two or three companies already produce workbooks or copycats of the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat on Amazon. So we've been working on one. The team here at Startup Club has been working on putting together a workbook just for Start. Like we're getting right into just Start, okay? And we haven't used ChatGPT pretty much at all. We've done it all on our own, trying to design it. And now we're starting to, and by the way, we're going to ChatGPT and starting to ask ChatGPT now what their thoughts are. But what's interesting, I went to Claude and I inserted the first section Start into Claude. And I asked it to create a workbook, and it didn't do a very good job. It really did a horrible job. So I'd love for anybody who wants to defend Claude here to come on stage and talk about that. Maybe Morris yourself, or we could just talk back and forth about what your thoughts are on Claude. Or if anybody here on stage already has some experience with Claude. Oh, here's Morris coming up. That's great. We appreciate this, Morris. We really do. Pulling you on stage, Morris. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on stage like that. I know I'm sort of calling you out, but what was your experience with Claude? I want to hear a little bit more about that. Morris. And it's the right hand. You might be relatively new. There you go. Oh,
Hello
there he
again,
is.
guys. Yeah, we talked once when
mainstream about how professors would use it in the classroom. Now everything is about AI. I laugh. It's like you go to buy a sandwich. The store's name is Sandwich AI. You buy a juice AI. So it's funny. I remember when everything was about IO, because IO became the domain for usually startups. So I enjoy surfing these waves my own way as a consultant, as a professor, and as a volunteer. So it's not that I like Claude, but I use it sometimes. Honestly, the one I use the most is Semantic Scholar, which is an AI powered.
It's called Semantic Scholar.
Yes, is an AI powered search engine for scientific papers. And there are others. There are other options too. But what is cool about it, it's like you write a topic and the whole algorithm organizes the papers according to the topic and gives you a short summary of each paper. And also you can upload papers, and it's like the kind of the same thing other transformers do, gives you like a highlight of the main points of anything you upload in text. So Claude to me is just, it's, I like Claude not because it's better or worse. It's just that I don't like mathematical waterfalls telling me how to think. And I think that Gemini and XBard and Bing are too much. They are too opinionated. I think we say in English, and I don't like that because I'm not feeding those algorithms. I'm not choosing the kind of data they are feeding, they're using, and so I don't feel like as a human being, I see all this technology as an engineer too. I see all of those technologies as tools. So you pick the one that works better for you. It's like social networks. I started using, for instance, Entra in 2021. And I was talking about Entra on Clubhouse many times. And a lot of people are saying, why are you talking about Entra here? Well, I would say because I think you can connect Clubhouse with Entra. There is, to me, the way I do things, there is some sort of like a connection synergy. I don't love networks, social networks. What I love is the connection we humans are able to establish. The projects we're able to take off the ground, the things we can build together. And the spaces to do that are called social networks or professional networks. So, in conclusion, I use all tools you mentioned, my team too, depending on the goal, depending on what we're doing. As an engineer and as a programmer, I use other things that are very good too. One of them is Black Box. Um, but the only thing I always complain, I will keep complaining about, it's like, don't try to lecture me about how I should think. Just answer my questions or help me to improve what I have done, what I have built. That's the point. So that's why I like Claude in that sense. And I agree with what you said, Colin. I mean, there are some limitations too. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, that's it's really cool. Yeah, one is Entree. We've done 4 master classes on Entree. I really enjoy the platform Entree. I have to say it's more intimate. You can do PowerPoints and presentations and really enjoy that. We've got one coming up on March 8th. And if you want to put that in your calendar, March 8th at 3 o'clock. We do our show here every Friday at 2 o'clock. But then we've been doing a master class on the at 3 o'clock following the show, and we do it now. We're doing it once a month, and the show we're talking about is how to catch the wave, the AI wave, which is interesting. It's a little bit of a different topic than what we're talking about today, because what we're talking about there is how to catch the wave, how to catch a paradigm shift or a technology shift and ride that. And in our book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, we had the opportunity to interview Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm Inside the Tornado. And he sort of defines technology, not sort of, I'm sorry, he actually defines paradigm shifts like no other before. He redefined the entire technology adoption curve, and he does a phenomenal job. So we're going to get into deep on that. Entree is a great platform. Claude, that's interesting. Like, I need to play with it a little bit more, but your thesis around this notion that we shouldn't be controlled by the AI. We shouldn't be influenced by the AI. The AI should just simply respond to us, and there shouldn't be a bias in its response. I think that's very interesting because that's the world we're in. We're entering a world of multiple AIs. I can imagine a time where we're going to have an AI that helps us just with our medical questions, maybe, or You might have a Republican AI, a Democrat AI, and maybe an independent AI. You might have an AI that does helps you with just your cooking, or like there could be so many verticals that AI begins to specialize in a particular way, or like I know Pi.ai. I don't know if Morris, if you play with Pi yet, but as I have a lot of fun with her, I call it her, but she's very conversational, but she can't take any hard work. Like she won't. I can't pump documents into her, and she comes out with some good stuff. It was just very conversational. She's gotten to know me pretty well, and that's been an interesting thing. We did an interview with her on one of the shows. It's on startup.club, and it's fascinating to be interviewed by her. Also did an interview by ChatGPT, and I found that that particular session was a little bit more. She kept just going deeper and deeper and deeper, and not thinking about the whole sort of topic. I mean, there are different AIs that do different things, and I think that's something that we might want to wake up to, because we've all been thinking about ChatGPT. Is ChatGPT everything? And the reality is no. There's going to be an oh my gosh, I don't think anyone's ever said this. Maybe I'm the first. There's an AI for that. Hey, whoever wants to follow up with that. You know, like there's an app for that, there's an AI for that.
No, I mean, it's the way it's going to go, right? But I think there's one thing that you're not thinking about is it actually can be tuned for the different tones. Like that's kind of core to the logic, and that's a huge shift as compared to apps or other things. Just to pay devil's advocate here, Colin. Like that's the difference. It's not an app. It's not singular. They're not trying to be niche. I'm interested in what you're thinking about that
No,
because
but Michelle,
implicit in the name is a large language model. Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong.
will one AI rule them all? Like I'm pulling
Oh,
my Lord of the
wow.
Rings quotes out
I
here,
think
okay?
I think
Wow.
what's going to
Go ahead.
happen, Colin, is what history tells us. Remember when we had like the car industry, and we had, I think, more than 80 or 100 brands selling cars. Mercedes was one, Benz was another one, the Fusion. And today, well, the Japanese entered the market, the Chinese too, but before that, we had way less than 50 brands selling cars. And so history tells us that probably in a couple of decades, or maybe in 50 years, we'll have like maybe 3 or 5 brands controlling everything. This is the way I see. That's the what evidence shows us.
Yeah, and you've got the counter model. Like, of course, there was the Model T. That how started it all, right? And then it grew into multiple manufacturers. But then you also have this sort of counter model with magazines. You know, it came out with 4 or 5 magazines, and now you have 500. TV stations, ABC, NBC, CBS. Now you got 500 stations, right? So I like that.
But
We'll
depending on the country, Colin, yeah, you're right. But depending on the country, you have like 7 families controlling the whole system. So it's like but probably you're talking about the USA, and that's cool. That's cool. I see some countries copying for instance, small radio stations like community radio stations, small, like let's say neighborhoods. This is something new for us, especially in South America, um, and let alone in Asia. But the point is, like, yes, but you may have many brands in some countries. You may have many options, but you have like 3 or 4 groups controlling at all that the whole thing. So
No, I
that's
think
my point.
that is a different question now, because that is, you have billionaires and big corporations controlling the world right now, and if they start controlling the AIs, which is likely, look at Microsoft's market cap rise against Apple over the last 12 months. It's absolutely fascinating to see how AI has transformed its market cap. And I think I can't remember, but I think it made it the largest or most expensive company in the world again, or they're pretty close. I think Apple was, and I think Microsoft, both to overtake that again. So I'm not disagreeing that there won't be a few billionaires that control all of this stuff. Like I'm not, like that's maybe a different topic for a different time. But I will say that I think there will be. I don't think one app's going to fit all. Yeah, I do believe that, or sorry, one app, one AI is going to fit all. I do believe that there's going to be multiple AIs to solve multiple problems or multiple challenges to serve the market in different ways. By the way, a year ago, if I had said that, I would have called myself crazy. It wasn't until I started using Pi and I started using Perplexity, and I've used Claude. I used Grok, I think was the one on Twitter, Elon Musk's, which I did not like. Did not really do much for me. But I'm certain he'll come up with something. There'll be like every AI is going to find its niche, right? I don't think one AI is going to run all AIs. It's not going to be like an operating system or like a word processing or a spreadsheet. I think it's going to be different. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. But we're doing popcorn style right now, and if you're in the audience, we're going to keep the audience open, or the stage open, for another 2 or 3 minutes, and we will close it down. So if you do want to come on stage and just share your AI story, your AI success story with us, we'd love to hear from you. It's Friday afternoon. We're just having fun right now. Otherwise, we're just going to go popcorn style here on stage. Anyone else want to share? Oh, I have the next 6 or 7, right? That I haven't shared. Uh, yeah, but I have to go to it right now and find it. So if Michelle, you want to give me like a 2 minute moment here to back me up.
Yeah, so we're talking about ideas and ways to use AI that we're using AI. We've had a lot of good ideas here, but one that comes to mind for me, not that I'm using it, but I think it's a massive improvement and it's actually going to actually help humanity is all the medical applications, Colin. Like I'm just like so in awe when I read articles of things that are being used, like detecting cancer, like it's massively better than like current methodology. Like that's where I think the real value comes, Colin, is really like actually helping people in these kind of treatments, even like prescriptions. Like, and if you look across the board, there's all kinds of geno experience and data being loaded now. Like, we're going to be talking a much different conversation in a year, Colin.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that um, I just keep turning over rocks. I mean, that's the best way of saying it. And I keep finding new things to use it for. I was okay. So another one today. I was using it this morning. Like literally, I'm horrible. Like right out of bed with my laptop. Okay, Startup Club. Wouldn't it be cool to have really neat shirts that have edgy statements? So I went to ChatGPT and said, create 20 edgy statements for Startup Club that you could put on a T-shirt. And there's some pretty good stuff that it came up with. Um, I'm trying to find it right now, but again, here we go. Disruptor in training. Sleep is for the funded. Pitch perfect and venture ready. Startup life, more hustle, less sleep. Innovate, elevate, repeat. I think it's gonna play a little bit on my book title too, but coding by day, pitching by night. Running on coffee and venture capital. Eat, sleep, disrupt, repeat. I think that was a play on my book. Angel investor magnet. Uh, it just goes on and on and on. I think one of my favorite ones was serial entrepreneur, serial insane, and I thought that that would be an interesting T-shirt. So I mean, there's so many different applications. I just woke up this morning. I was playing with that. All right, so going back to the part two of the article, the Forbes article, on 13 ways you can use AI to help accelerate your startup. Number 9 we had was computation. Somebody had already mentioned that this idea of computations, of programming, there's a lot of areas in mathematics that AI is absolutely revolutionizing and making it simple and easy and accessible for the not so smart people like myself, which is pretty cool. Knowledge and research. I was asking AI to help come up with different book awards for the book Start, Scale, Legs, Repeat. And I actually went to Google. I went to uh, Pi.ai, I went to ChatGPT AI, and believe it or not, they all came up with similar but different lists. So if you want to improve your research, you can't just go to google.com anymore. You do need to start adding on some of those AIs. All right, number 11, write a press release. Um, we own, Startup Club owns pressreleaseai.com. Someone was talking about domain names earlier. And we actually have that name, and we have Business Plan AI, and we plan to launch a free press release product, one that does sort of the prompt engineering for you, but also will help you with layouts and connect you with the actual press release service, and it will be free. And then we also have a Business Plan AI product coming out. Number 12, social media and advertisements. Okay, come on, social media. This is interesting because Michelle and I, you if you follow us, you would know, but we run an incubator of about 20 companies. And one of the companies that came into our incubator is a company called Pencilla, Pencila. And that company, after 14 months, has finally launched, and it is your AI marketing team for $99. And it's focused on e-commerce companies, and it's called Pencilla.com. So you can literally like plan out all your emails, all your posts, all your advertising, all through one app for $99 a month. It's amazing how startups can now compete on such a larger scale. I think last week Sam Altman in the Wall Street Journal mentioned that he believes that the first unicorn solopreneur will be created in the next few years. The first solopreneur unicorn will be created. AI will mint more millionaires than any other technology shift in history. All right, number 13. Use apps that embrace AI. This is interesting because that was the last one. There are a lot of apps now that help you run your startup, but unless you go through the app and you look at it, like we use one for our customer service. Michelle, what's the name of it again? I keep forgetting. Zentel?
Zen Desk.
Zendesk. Thank you. Zendesk. And they just enabled it 2 weeks ago. We had 97% of our calls going directly through live voice or through chat. Now, 66% of those calls do that, and 33% are being answered through AI. And we're not talking about those irritating chat bots that you used to get when you're going to a customer service site. We're talking about real chat bots that can answer real questions almost as well as humans, and maybe better, by the way. I'll put that out there. So I'm going to leave it at that. Those are 13. If you wanted to check out that article, you can do so. Just go to Google and type in Forbes, Colin C. Campbell, and you can see we've done about 20 articles on Forbes. And the one of them was, or two of them was 13 ways you can accelerate your business or your startup. Jose, you're late to the game, but you made it. We'd love to hear from you, Jose.
Hey, Colin. How's it going? Hey everyone, happy to be here. Definitely.
Awesome.
I guess I could share two success stories if you guys would like.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. You're finishing the show strong.
awesome. So a little bit that makes kind of different is we blend AI with automation to create custom journeys. So this is something that was really cool where we created a vision board to journey to where you go setting your goals, you set what you're willing to do to get them. And this combines we use AI, we use ChatGPT in this case, in this model, to analyze what people say, what their goals are, what limitations they may have, what biases they're carrying. And it actually creates an email, set of emails and a custom journey on giving them tips, on giving them exercises, and actually even a future self email to where it nurtured them along the journey of creating this. We use automation so we could create a whole product because it actually embeds them into a community, and that was one of the ways that is actually grabbing a lot of traction right now for creating like just an entire journey that people get to go through. And so that was one. The second one is a personal experience. So this is my daughter. She got her first part-time job, and we're super excited. we're like, okay, well, I got to actually help her with a bank account and understanding, what business is and stuff. So I wanted to explain that very good, and I used just AI ChatGPT in this model. But I went and I asked it, "Are you familiar with the book Profit First? I think it's a phenomenal book for structuring business." And it says yes. And I said, "Okay. Well, my daughter likes graphic design. She likes coloring, drawing, all this stuff, and she is, this age. Can you please explain this to her in a way that she would understand?" And it really broke it down into 2 pages of it broke down the entire book into a way that how she could allocate her colors, how she could set things aside for her drawing and everything. And I got my youngest daughter to come read it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that makes totally sense." So you could take things as complex as banking and taxes and all these different things, and make it fun, make it awesome for them to experience it, make them an easy way for them to understand it in their own language. This way they feel like they can relate to it. And so she's right away already setting her money aside. She started with the envelopes, and now we got her bank account. So she's like, "Hey, I want to structure it this way." And she's taken the initiative versus me trying to lecture different things. It's more, how can I teach her in her own language this? And so I think behavior-based training is a big thing that we've been playing with now too, because sometimes we come with different mindsets depending on different journeys that we're on. So if you teach people where they're currently off based off of their behavior traits and personality, then you could use analogies based off of things that they like and different experiences to really create a custom journey. But just thought these ideas would help. We've been able to get some great success with them, and I think it can maybe it trigger something in others to do the same.
I love the way you're using that with your daughter, because we're sitting here, oh my gosh, education. Even me in my head, I'm thinking, oh, in the classroom. But wow, what a great way, to educate and teach and help your children. Like, that's amazing. And I love that you did it on that subject, which a lot of children don't get that kind of education. So kudos to you for taking that step. Colin.
Well, you've been listening to Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. And this is the end of the show. I mean, we really covered it well. I really thought the community came together nicely and shared. And I know it's a successful show when I can learn a lot from the show as well. And today I learned from everybody here in the community. If you haven't already done so, check out the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat on Amazon. We hit #1 in 14 different categories. It came out October 3rd. We do talk about AI, and it's interesting because it was released it was submitted to Forbes in November of 2023. And we do talk a lot about catching the technology adoption or catching the technology wave, and also about um, we talk a lot about AI and all the different paradigm shifts and how you can capitalize on those shifts. Uh, but it's interesting, it did come out before, it was submitted to Forbes, and it was published on October 3rd, 2023, and hit #1 bestseller in 14 categories. If you haven't also done so, go to startup.club, sign up to the email lists so that we can send you a notice of the speakers coming on. We've got a number of guest speakers booked on Startup Club. Almost 970,000 members right now on Clubhouse. And if you include all of our other channels, we're over 1 million members strong. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next Friday on the same show, Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Bye for now.
Everyone, have an amazing weekend. Thank you so much.